Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news. Talking like my son, we are recapping the week's nerdy news from Gray Malkin Lane to the Baxter Building and everywhere in between. Wait, Steve, didn't we just do this?
We did. Maybe not from those two places, but we were here yesterday. So
we were here yesterday in this exact same place. We were in your ear holes yesterday, or today, or in front of your eyes yesterday, or today. I mean, whenever you're watching this, we're in those things right now. Yeah. But we're gonna be back. We're back again. We're back again now. 2 days in a row. Most we've ever done this podcast. 2 days in a row. Craziness. And that's just because DC fandom took up so much of the nerdy atmosphere. The nerdy air was so much of it was breathed in by the DC fandom. We had to do a separate episode for DC fandom, and today we are covering the rest of the past weeks, or a week plus, I should say, nerdy news. Which, I mean, not surprisingly, talking about a whole episode worth of DC stuff. Not surprisingly, this episode mostly Marvel.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, yesterday for anyone who didn't go back and listen, we ended up talking about an hour and 15 minutes on a 4-hour announcement. So we talked for a quarter of what DC did. There was a lot that came out, so I would, highly advise to go back and listen to that one if you're hitting this in the feed first. For sure. A lot of great announcements coming out of DC. So.
And we didn't even cover all of them. We had we whizzed by some of them. We're barely mentioning them, and some of them we didn't mention at all. So,
well, when you drop 25 minutes on the Batman trailer, that kind of cuts into the rest of the podcast. So
yeah, you got to push through real quick for the rest of the time. So, but anyway, check that out, and we may still have some more DC talk later in this episode. But we're starting off, like we said, with Marvel, and this is a story that came out today. This is hot off the presses, folks. Yep. This is it's really, I guess, mostly Disney because it concerns more than just Marvel movies, but I guess mostly Marvel movies, I should say. All of the currently slated MCU movies, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, have been pushed back. Some of them kind of considerably. Most of them only a couple months. But everything has been pushed back. Doctor Strange, which is going to come out in March, been pushed back to May. These are all in 2022. Thor: Love and Thunder was going to come out in May of 22. Now it's going to come out in July. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was going to come out in July, and now it's coming out in November.
Yep.
The Marvels was going to come out in November, now is going to come out in February. Ant-Man and the Wasp was going to come out in February. Ant-Man 3, that is. Quantumania is going to come out in July of 2023. And there's 2 Untitled Marvel movies that have just been completely taken off the schedule, and one 20th Century Fox property that's been completely taken off the schedule. And the one Untitled Marvel movie that remains was going to come out November 2023, is now coming out just earlier that month in November 23. It moved up a week, which is weird.
The unsaid speculation is that's got to be Fantastic Four, like. The way everything's lining up, that seems to be the most likely date and what they're holding that for. But
why do you think it's Fantastic Four?
I think it's the only property they've announced a film for that hasn't been slotted, and I can't remember when they dropped that. Did they give a year or a ballpark year, or was it just soon or something?
I don't think they gave us anything. I think we know nothing about Fantastic Four. Is that the only one that hasn't been slated?
I thought that was the only one that didn't have a date. Like the infographic, they listed a bunch as undated or untitled, but in Marvel circles, it was like you could kind of discern how and where a lot of them were falling.
I mean, I'm trying to think of that episode that we did a while ago when they announced a couple of these Untitled Marvel movies that have now been removed from the schedule. Like, we were kind of predicting what they were going to be.
Yep.
And I think the only one that I can think of that has been announced but not dated is Deadpool 3, because they're still working on it.
True.
We know what's being written.
That could also be the 20th Century Fox listed.
Would it still be considered that?
I don't See, that's a good question because it was part of that properties.
It was, but when I see 20th Century, Untitled 20th Century Fox or whatever, I guess I assume it's something that was being worked on before they bought 20th Century Fox. I mean, I could be wrong about that.
Right.
But you're right. I guess that could easily be Deadpool 3. But why would they remove Deadpool 3 from the schedule?
Huh.
People want Deadpool 3. They're working on Deadpool 3. People are going to be mad if we don't get a Deadpool 3.
Yeah, I mean, Reynolds himself has confirmed that they're working on it. So
they hired writers. They're currently working on it. It's happening. Or is it?
It's happening.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not happening anymore. Steve, well, why do you think? Why would they do this? Why switch everything up? Why switch everything up except Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
See, that's just I really don't know. Because all it did was push. So they pushed everything one slot. So Marvel historically has their 4 slots through the year: the February, May, July, November, or has started to turn it into that. And they just pushed everything one slot basically. So either something wasn't ready, like was Multiverse of Madness, did there need to be reshoots? What could possibly have pushed it from March? I don't know.
What was the Batman trailer so good and so powerful that they needed to say, hey, we need to leave March alone. March is going to belong to Batman, and we need to get out of here.
Yep.
Let's hightail it to May.
They didn't push Spidey, so it's just now there's
just but I don't know if they can push Spidey because Spidey's a Sony release, so I don't think they're able to push Spidey.
Right, and Eternals is already done and wrapped and dusted, so there's no need for that. So I mean, the only thing would be you do have Miss Marvel and possibly She-Hulk slated for 2022, and I don't think either of those would need to happen before.
I mean, I guess we don't know. I mean, I'm assuming Miss Marvel has to happen before the Marvels.
Right.
But, the Marvels wasn't coming out till late 2022 anyway, and we're assuming Miss Marvel is going to come out early 2022, so that shouldn't have been too much of a conflict.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the shows being too much of a conflict with the films, but I could be completely wrong about that. Maybe Sam Raimi needed more time on Doctor Strange, so they bumped everything. I don't know. I guess I'd be interested to see if it's a creative thing, like if it is a thing where somebody needed more time or storylines were going to conflict or something like that, or if it was some kind of weird business decision. I don't know. It just seems like it's a big move for everything.
Yeah, it shovels everything.
Yeah, including, we didn't mention, and this one's peculiar to me as well, the Indiana Jones 5 got moved from July 22 to June 2023. It got moved an entire year.
Huh.
Which is weird to me because, they're making that movie. They're filming it. We've seen on-set photos of Harrison Ford,
breaking his leg and stuff.
I don't know. Did he break his leg? He hurt his shoulder in a fight.
Oh, that's yep. Sorry, wrong appendage.
Yeah, you're thinking of the other time that he got
injured
in an action movie. But yeah, that one's weird too because we know they're making that movie. Do they need to move it an entire year to finish that movie? What's going on? I don't know. It's just weird that they would move everything.
Yeah, and shuffling the whole thing seems a little funky, especially I got it with coming out of COVID. The question is, do they push it just to at that point, you're assuming by May, having, looked at timelines that they're anticipating because I have a under 5-year-old child, they're, by that point anticipating the sub 5-year-olds eligible for vaccine.
That's true.
Do they think, at that point, hey, everything's going to start to work its way out? Maybe things will be closer to back to normal by then.
That's a good point. Is it
by
pandemic
then,
related?
I might be willing to actually go to a theater by then. So.
Side note, I decided that I will be going to the theater to see the Batman because it's coming out on my birthday, and there's no way I'm not. Why wouldn't I do that?
You can't go to Galactic Star Cruiser, so you might as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't or won't pay $6,000 to go to the Star Wars hotel. But I will take a day off from work, and hey, even if I have to wear a mask for 2.5 hours, however long that movie is, I'll do that. It's my freaking birthday, and I want to watch the new Batman movie on my birthday, so that's happening.
My kid does it in school every day. We should be fine.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not going to be a big deal.
And by then, I may even join you. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, awesome. Big birthday party for me.
Multiverse Report on site at Movie Tavern.
They moved all these. We don't know why. Maybe we will get some more insight on this as the weeks and days roll by. Some insight as to why things got shuffled around. Almost everything got shuffled around. The one, as I mentioned earlier, the one thing that did not get shuffled around is Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And again, why not Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Like, why is this the one exception that stays on its release date? I don't know. Because, I mean, they're making, like, I feel like they can't be so much farther along on Guardians of the Galaxy 3 than they are in everything else, because James Gunn just finished doing Suicide Squad.
Right.
So he's not, like, they're not even really filming this movie, I don't think. I think he's still, like, storyboarding it, and they're in pre-production still. Maybe they start. I don't know. But they're not farther along than Sam Raimi is on Multiverse of Madness, so, like, what's going on? But speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a big casting announcement we got last week is the casting of the character of Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which will be portrayed by an actor named Will Poulter. Will Poulter's been in Midsommar and the Maze Runner series and a bunch of other stuff. This is a big character from Marvel Comics who was teased during one of the post-credit scenes from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. They teased the birth of Adam Warlock from the race of people called the Sovereign. There's those gold-skinned people that were mad at the Guardians. They kind of had like a vendetta against them, specifically Peter Quill in Guardians Volume 2. So I think a lot of people were confused by that post-credit scene because it just said Adam and it showed like a cocoon. And if you didn't know things about the comics, you were like, who's Adam and why is there a sarcophagus or a cocoon? And like, I don't understand what this is. Who is Adam Warlock? Adam Warlock was created in the 1960s by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Gil Kane, and Roy Thomas. His origin in the comic book, he was originally created by Earth scientists in an attempt to create the perfect human being, but he obviously quickly rebels against his human creators and travels deep into space where he meets the High Evolutionary and ends up bouncing around space doing weird space stuff. He's got all sorts of powers. He does have the aforementioned gold skin, which is why it was a good fit for him to be invented by a race of gold-skinned people, I guess. He's got all crazy powers like super strength, speed, durability, energy projection, flight, matter manipulation. He's basically super powerful. So Steve,
one of the most powerful characters in the entire Marvel universe.
Is that true?
Yeah. And
oh, wow.
Well, especially when, in the follow-up to the Infinity Saga, he wielded the gauntlet and has been a protector of the gauntlet, and his alter ego, a clone of him, Magus, is I'm very curious if that's where this is going to end up going for Guardians 3. But Magus was basically evil Adam Warlock, who there was, always major conflict between the two. With Thanos out of the picture, that seems to kind of be where they would have to take it.
Yeah, okay, that was my question for you, Steve, because I haven't read a ton of stories that have Adam Warlock in them.
Yep.
The one that I have read several times is the Infinity Gauntlet storyline.
Right.
Which is over.
Right.
MCU.
And he was a huge part of the Infinity Gauntlet saga.
Huge part of it. And so much so that when he was teased at the end of Guardians 2, everyone assumed that he was going to be birthed or born or whatever in Infinity War.
Yep.
So that he could play a role in that. Or in Endgame, so he could play a role in that movie. That did not happen, and he did not. But when I say play a role, if they're going to be comic accurate, if Adam Warlock was going to, quote-unquote, play a role in that saga, he would have stayed far away from the action and watched it until the very last second.
Right. He would have in all honesty, Captain Marvel's show, like, her role was effectively, she was Adam Warlock in this. She just... Except
she wasn't doing, like, an Owatu the Watcher thing when she was, like, just...
Right.
Stand back. I cannot interfere until now is not the time. Now is not the time.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, because, I mean, again, just because that's the only one that I've read with Adam Warlock in it doesn't mean there aren't others, like other routes they can go, like what you're saying. But I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with Adam Warlock, where when I'm coming from a place where arguably his most famous role is a storyline that they're not doing anymore.
Right. And I mean, even the secondary, like I was mentioning, the Infinity War stuff, like at the end of that, he's part of the Infinity Watch, like the people watching over the stones, which are paperweights at this point.
Yeah, so, which they've made a point to say in the Loki show, that are meaningless, and
right.
And I think that was for Loki, but it was also for the viewer. It was kind of like a saying, like, hey, we're not dealing with these anymore.
So,
this is a non-issue for us at this point.
Right.
So,
and
move along.
I've heard some rumors that that What If kind of recants a little of that, but I haven't gotten through it. So.
Yeah, we talked about that an episode or two ago. Yes, that What If ends up being an Infinity War thing, which is, I think I said this on the episode. We talked about it, but it was like, okay, I've kind of seen this before. I'm not super. You could have done anything. It's a multiverse. Literally, you could have done anything, and you did more Infinity Stones. Cool, great. But I have to assume that James Gunn introduced Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, knowing what he wanted to do with him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and also knowing that he was not going to be a part of the MCU's version of the Infinity Saga. Right. The Infinity War and Endgame. So he's had a plan for this character, for Adam Warlock, for a very long time, years now. So I trust him to do something great. At this point, I trust James Gunn.
He's up there. Yeah, he's up there with how we were talking about, comics, like comic writers and artists that we would pick up just because they're doing it.
Yeah,
Gunn is very much that way with film at this point for me. It's like if his name's on it, it's worth at least checking out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, after the Guardians movies alone, that would have put him on that path for me.
Yeah.
Then after seeing the Suicide Squad, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll watch anything this guy wants to do, and hopefully it's more Suicide Squad movies and more Guardians movies, because he's crushing it. Although he has said that the third Guardians is going to be his last Guardians movie.
Okay.
But I don't think he's done with DC yet. I think he's going to go back there when he's done with Volume 3. So,
well, he's got a smattering of Peacemaker going on, so
that's true. He is also dipping his toe in the on the small screen for HBO's Peacemaker, which we talked about on last week's episode. Check it out. Moving on to another Marvel thing. This isn't like a huge story or anything, but I thought it was very interesting. Oscar Isaac, who has been cast as Moon Knight, who we still haven't seen an official image. We saw like a leaked photo of Moon Knight a while ago. I thought it looked cool, but I'm kind of surprised that after that leaked photo, we didn't get like an official costume picture or anything like that. But
that we didn't even know, like it was a leaked set
picture. It was real, you're right. Yeah.
And there was no confirmation whether it was him, whether it was what is Mark Spector's brother's name in this whole thing? He's another. He looks very similar, different coloring, but there was like a Moon Knight-ish costume, and that's all that popped up, and we're like, okay. Yeah,
I guess could have just been a really good cosplay. Now that you mention it, like it didn't have to be. I guess I assumed it was real, but it doesn't have to be. But we know very little about this show and the direction. There's been various iterations of Moon Knight over the years. He's a very popular character, but there's been a lot of different versions of him, like many comic book characters have had. But Oscar Isaac said this week that Moon Knight is the most challenging role of his entire career. His quote was as follows. He said, "Speaking with Kevin Feige, I told him I'm going to come in with these big ideas, and if you don't like them, that's fair. And immediately, we saw it all. I found so much room to do the things I've never done before and had been curious about and wanting to do. I could not wait to get to set. And it was the biggest workload I've ever had in my career and the most challenging by sheer amount of stuff we had to do in 8 months. And even yet, I couldn't wait to get to set and work."
Yeah.
So I love hearing that.
And
I
he's
love
been
hearing
in some stuff to be saying that this is the apex of what he's done, or the most challenging that he's done, and the most in-depth he's getting into.
I mean, his work on X-Men Apocalypse alone is just for the books.
Oh, I thought we could forget about that one.
That was probably challenging for a different reason.
Very much so.
Probably for a few different reasons. Terrible makeup, terrible script, terrible movie, terrible director.
Yeah. It was pretty bad all around.
Yeah. Anyway, so this to me indicates that they're going with the multiple personality version of this character. I guess, because what else would be so challenging, unless he was playing. I don't know. I clearly, this is me reading into what he said. I have nothing to back this up, but something so challenging, being able to do things he's never thought he'd be able to do, or he always wanted to do, like, playing a character with multiple personalities and stuff is certainly a challenging role, and certainly affords him the opportunity to do a lot of different stuff, and makes them have to do a lot of different stuff, like he said, in a period of 8 months. So that's what I'm betting. I'm betting they're going with the multiple personality version of this character, because from what I know, it seems to be the most popular version of the character. I've only read
it's definitely
Moonlight stuff, but
I think it's the most well received, the best written, and the most intriguing.
Sure.
But yeah, basically, for anyone who doesn't know, Mark Spector is a former CIA operative who ends up dying and is brought back to life as the scion of the Egyptian god Khonshu, and he is his the reckoning of the god, basically.
Yeah.
So he just ends up being a lot more boots on the ground city type. If you're going, city, global, cosmic, it's a lot more cityscape type stories.
Yeah,
and
he's been described to me as Marvel's Batman.
Very much so.
Yeah.
That's the detective nature. Yes, he's empowered by a god, but it's also like very physical hand-to-hand type stuff. It's not like he's there's any telekinesis or I-beams related to anything.
Right.
He's just I'm gonna punch the hell out of you and figure out what you're doing.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. Again, we don't have a firm date on Moon Knight. It seemed, the way he was talking about it in this quote, seemed like he's done filming. He said, I couldn't wait. He's talking about in the past tense. I couldn't wait to get to set. We had to do it in 8 months. Seems like they already did finish doing it in 8 months. So they seem like they're done, which is exciting. So who knows? Who knows?
Mark Spector could be done, but Stephen Grant or Jake Loxley might not be done.
Oh yeah, he's like doing.
He's in character during the interview.
Yeah, method acting. Yeah, so he's really. So I guess, I haven't really been paying too close attention. I'm not sure which of these shows wrapped sooner, Ms. Marvel or Moon Knight. But it seems like, I think they're both done. So I'll be interested to see which we get first after Hawkeye this November.
Have we heard anything on She-Hulk either? Because that was supposed to be 22 as well.
I think they're filming it. We saw there were some set photos. Like, I think there was a picture of Jamila Jamil in her wig.
Yep.
She had a different hair style and hair color for her role as Titania.
And we still haven't seen Tatiana Maslany in.
Correct. We have not seen Titania Maslany in full costume or makeup or what have you, motion capture, whatever it's going to be. We don't even know how they're going to do it. If it's going to be a combination of those things or whatever.
Just green spray paint.
That's the thing. For people who don't know, we're talking about She-Hulk right now. If you don't know, She-Hulk's green all the time.
Yeah.
She's kind of like the endgame version of Hulk, where she keeps her intelligence and her humanity, but is just green. And she's not quite as, she's big and she's tall, but she's not quite as, she's not like a giant. Like Hulk is a giant.
Jennifer Walters basically ends up effectively mutating into a WWE wrestler.
Yeah.
With super strength.
Basically. Yeah. So, Titania Maslany, average height and build, but not a 6 foot tall WWE wrestler style. So
we're not going to Themyscira and getting one of the Amazons.
But how how practical is it for them to have her in like a CGI character all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That'll be interesting to see.
So, yeah, and I don't even know. So I'm interested to even see how they're planning on doing it, let alone a photo of her in full makeup. We did get a picture of Mark Ruffalo in motion capture for his work on She-Hulk, so we know that he's back for sure. We knew he was, but we knew it seems like he's very involved. If he's doing his own motion capture and everything still, he's not just phoning it in or whatever, doing a voice. Because they could do that by now. They could just animate, take the version of him from Endgame and make him say different stuff. Done.
I mean,
but that's cool.
They brought Grand Moff Tarkin back from the dead. Disney's got the money to do whatever they want to.
Yeah, they sure did. I was watching A New Hope with my son the other day, and he did an impression of Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin, and his impression was pushing in his cheeks like this because he's got those like sunken cheekbones.
Yep.
So he like put his fingers in and pushed his cheeks in and just went, "I'm so old." and that was his impression of Grand Moff Tarkin.
So that's a 4-year-old's or 5-year-old's take on that's great on Peter Cushing.
It was really, really funny.
I think I'm getting close to breaching the first movie with Sebastian. So
ooh, nice.
Yep,
that's exciting.
It's
exciting.
It's gonna happen sometime here. He's very excited.
I don't know if we talked about it. I did show my son Empire Strikes Back.
So you're free and clear now?
I'm free and clear, except that he was very scared by the ending of it. He liked everything, but like once everything from Han Solo getting frozen through the lightsaber duel and everything, he was very scared.
Oh yeah.
And has since told me that he doesn't remember any of the movie, but remembers that it was scary. I think he remembers more of it than he's admitting to. I think he's just scared of thinking about it. So I definitely I feel like I definitely showed it to him too early. But I believe that he will watch it again and enjoy it more, obviously, at some point. Because there are things that he does remember, but when I ask him, he's like, "No, I don't know that. I don't remember that." And I'm like, "Well, then how do you know it was scary?" He's like, because it was. I don't know.
Because I was watching it like this through my eye.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
But anyway, so he's sticking with we went back to A New Hope since then. He's watching A New Hope several times since, so he's still into it. I haven't lost him completely.
Well, speaking of staying on target, we should probably
stay on target and go back to Marvel/Sony. Last Marvel movie news we got to talk about tonight is that a quote that Tom Holland gave in an interview with Entertainment Weekly. Tom Holland playing Spider-Man in the MCU, obviously. Tom Holland referred to Spider-Man No Way Home, his upcoming film that comes out in December, referred to it as the end of a trilogy and more, the end of a franchise, he said. The quote from Tom Holland was, "We were all treating No Way Home as the end of a franchise, let's say. I think if we were lucky enough to dive into these characters again, you'd be seeing something very different, or you'd be seeing a very different version. It would no longer be the Homecoming trilogy. We would give it some time and try to build something different and tonally change the films. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but we're definitely treating No Way Home like it was coming to an end, and it felt like it." Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy.
It's pretty heavy, and to me, this reads like he is laying groundwork for the possibility that Sony will not allow Marvel and Disney to use the character of Spider-Man anymore, like almost happened a few years ago when we all were terrified for 3 days while Sony and Marvel figured out a way to renew their deal to use Spider-Man, to share the character of Spider-Man.
Now, it could just be him at the same time, because he, obviously he lived through that. It could just be him hedging his bets in public of how they approached it and, building hype for that just in case they do have to break it. So it's not like he's going out and being like, the next movie's going to be great that we're never going to make.
Or it could be contractual on his end. Like, hey, if you want me to I don't know if I'm being like, I don't know if I'm going to come back as Spider-Man. You want me to come back? We'll have to talk about it when we come back.
Pay up.
Yeah, exactly. Pony up. I'm not an unknown anymore. If you want me to come back, you got to pay me.
I don't want RDJ money but I need more than I'm getting.
Yeah, I need at least Chris Evans money.
Right.
Or Chris Hemsworth money, minimal. But I like the idea that they're saying that this is like the end of a trilogy. And that it's not going to just be another open-ended MCU, come see the next one to find out what happens kind of thing. I like that idea. I don't like the idea of him not playing Spider-Man anymore. I really like him as Peter Parker. I would like him to come back and do a million of these. I think he said in the past that he would do as many as they wanted him to do, but clearly he wants to get paid for his time. And I don't know, maybe he felt blindsided a few years ago when all of a sudden he wasn't in the MCU anymore, and Sony's like, hey, we don't want you to be alarmed, but this deal is going to come to a close after whatever. He's contracted for one movie, I think, after No Way Home. He's got one other MCU appearance.
Right.
Before they have to renegotiate everything.
Which
but clearly
likely is going to be strange.
Yeah, you're right. That is pretty likely. I mean, it'd be shocking if they weren't already thinking about ways to extend this or ways to negotiate his contract to be in both worlds. I think this is just him laying groundwork if things go south and he ends up just being back at Sony.
That said, though, the whole, like, we've predicated on it a couple of times. Marvel probably wants to just bring Miles in and just do Miles things because they wouldn't be as beholden to Sony on it. Or would they? Depending on how it, like, who knows how that contract works, but like at some point, they end this trilogy. Maybe the next trilogy is something based off of like Bendis' Spider-Man.
But they would still have to see. I think the opposite, because even if they went, if the MCU wanted Miles, they would still have to negotiate with Sony. I think it would be the opposite. I feel like Sony, if Sony was smart, they'd have Miles be the Spider-Man of the Sony Spider-Man verse, and fight Venom and Morbius and Kraven or whatever other villain movies they're making, and keep loaning Tom Holland to Disney and make money that way too. That way they got two Spider-Man and they're making money on both ends.
Yeah, the thing makes little to no sense as to why Sony wouldn't just want to keep printing money, but they've done dumb things in the past.
Sure have.
But then you've also got the post-credit scene for Let There Be Carnage.
Yeah, so we know, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, skip ahead, spoiler alert. We know that Eddie Brock's version of Venom is going to show up in No Way Home now. Yeah. Because of the post-credit scene from Venom Let There Be Carnage. So they are doing everything they can to merge these two in certain ways. Why go through that if you are looking 6 months down the road thinking this contract is going to end? So I feel like they're going to have to renew it, and maybe I don't know why he would say this. Maybe it's his pitch for just tonally different movies. Maybe he wants to change how the movies feel. He wants to do something darker, or he wants to do something a little more serious, or something that's please God. And MCU fans, don't yell at me for this. I am dying for a Spider-Man that's not so wrapped in to the MCU that he can't make a movie without some giant celebrity guest star of an MCU Avenger guiding him along the way. Like, Jesus, can you please let him be Spider-Man a little bit and explore his own universe and not tie him into Robert Downey Jr. so hard that he has to spend an entire movie crying after Robert Downey Jr. is dead? Like, yo, just let him be Spider-Man, please. Maybe that's what he's thinking. He just wants to be more independent, its own kind of tone, its own kind of thing, and maybe he sees a way to stretch his spider legs a little further in a way where he's not so beholden to what's going on in the MCU. But again, this is all wild speculation on my part, and it's just basically things that I want him to be thinking.
Yeah, I mean, so, there's a lot of different ways they could take it, and there's a lot of ways that they could take it that I would enjoy them to do. As long as it, like you said, it isn't just taking Tom Holland and booting him to the curb, which I can't imagine anybody wants to do. So, actually, you made a statement earlier that I want your answer on. Okay. You said you like, and it may have been misspoken or unintentionally spoken the way it was.
Okay, we'll see.
You said you like Tom Holland as Peter Parker. Do you also like Tom Holland as Spider-Man? because that's always one of those
yes.
things where,
Sorry.
well, because that's always like when you talk about with DC, you talk about the Batman movies. Like the best Bruce Wayne is not necessarily the best Batman.
Yeah, true.
And with the Spidey movies, it could kind of be the same thing because you're also dealing with someone with a completely, supposed to be secret identity. And it's like, do you get the good vibes, the good Parker vibes and the good Spidey vibes? And Holland, I think, ticks both of them for the most part.
I agree with you. I think he's my favorite. He's my favorite version of the character, live action, that we've seen so far. I think he's great as Peter Parker because they're keeping him in high school. I think Peter Parker is. I think he stands out because they're treating him as a high school kid for more than one half of one movie,
Right.
which has been traditional in the past. That he, Tobey Maguire graduates in the middle of the first movie, and I think Andrew Garfield does too, or at the end of the first movie at least. Keep him in high school because that makes him different than anybody else in that universe. That he is a kid. Don't be so in a rush to age him up, like they were with the other versions. So yes, I like him both as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. And I definitely agree with you about the Batman Bruce Wayne stuff, but that stuff's subjective too. Like, someone else's favorite version of Batman isn't my favorite version of Batman or whatever, So, or same with Bruce Wayne. And very interested to see the Robert Pattinson version of Bruce Wayne because he seems like a crazy person, which I'm kind of down for.
For the record, I'm on the Keaton Bale. No, strike that. Reverse it.
Which is Bruce and which is Batman?
Bale is Bruce. Keaton is Batman.
So you like Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, and you like Keaton as Batman.
Yes,
the best.
I believe so.
Interesting. I thought Christian Bale was a very good Bruce Wayne.
Might just be what I grew up with. So
yeah, they're my two favorites so far in general, as both Bruce Waynes and Batmans or Batman. Anyway, hey, speaking of Batman, a character that belongs to DC, we do have one DC related story, and I say DC related because it's Vertigo related, and Vertigo is a DC imprint. Vertigo has published many amazing books: Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Sandman, and of course, Why the Last Man, one of my favorite comic book stories, graphic novel stories, whatever you want to call it, of all time.
Yep.
The wonderful show that has been premiering on Hulu, nearing the end of its first season. We just found out yesterday that is not going to be renewed at FX or Hulu for season 2. And I should say, I've been saying that it's on Hulu. It's not on Hulu. It's on FX. And FX just has a streaming deal with Hulu.
Right.
So that might be a difference, that it's not really being advertised like a streaming service show because it's a cable show. It's not necessarily on a streaming service. It just happens to be streaming on Hulu.
Right.
Because it's on
FX.
There's
like this weird FX on Hulu thing that...
Yes.
Which, thinking about it now, you have a Vertigo DC property streaming on a Disney-owned streaming service.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But anyway, I'll get into how I feel about it in a second, but we got a tweet from the showrunner, Eliza Clark, yesterday, and her statement is as follows. We have learned that we will not be moving forward with FX on Hulu for Season 2 of Why the Last Man. I have never in my life been more committed to a story, and there is so much more to tell. Why the Last Man is about gender, about how oppressive systems inform identity. We had a gender-diverse team of brilliant artists led by women at almost every corner of our production. Producers, writers, directors, cinematographers, production design, costume design, stunt coordination, and more. It is the most collaborative, creatively fulfilling, and beautiful thing I have ever been a part of. We don't want it to end. FX has been an amazing partner. Not so amazing, right? Because they canceled you. We have loved working with them, except for the part where they canceled you. And we're sad that Why the Last Man is not going forward at FX on Hulu. But we know that someone else is going to be very lucky to have this team and this story. I have never experienced the remarkable solidarity of this many talented people. We are committed to finding Why its next home. Hashtag Why lives on. So Steve, this is a super bummer for me. And I think it is for you because we both really like this story and we have both been very much enjoying season 1 of Why the Last Man.
Absolutely.
Am I wrong?
No, it. I don't know if it didn't get somewhere on name recognition or it didn't get somewhere on. I don't even know what. Like, if anybody watched the show, I can only imagine they would have been brought into it, and like, it was very well done. Like, I know we talk about the wives litmus test, and both of our wives bought in, like from the jump.
Yeah,
so
it was different. My wife read the book, so she was like ready to go. Yeah, but yeah, it's such a good. I've recommended it to a few people that haven't read the book that I just know like you know, ongoing like series like that. They're doing such a good job, and it's so good, and it's such a great adaptation. It's such a great story. It deserves to be seen by people who don't read comic books. And like,
Absolutely.
honestly, I would rather people read the comic books, but there's just people that aren't ever going to pick up a comic book in their lives, but they'll watch a show, and those people should watch Y: The Last Man.
Now, at the same time, though,
sorry, go ahead.
If they cancel, or since they're canceled, if they don't immediately get picked up sometime soon, it may actually cause my wife to read the graphic novels.
There you go.
She'll want to know where it goes. So
you want to know what happens. That's right. For me, the obvious answer here is HBO Max. Like, you are Warner Brothers. You're owned by Warner Brothers. DC is owned by Warner Brothers. Vertigo is a DC imprint. Y: Last Man, technically a DC book. Pick up this show. HBO Max. We know you're listening. HBO Max executives, you love this show. We always get we're flooded every week with emails from HBO executives saying how much they love this show. So we're telling you, HBO Max, pick up Y: The Last Man. Do it.
Well, it makes sense because this is probably like the fact that it's with FX and on Hulu, and that it's guaranteed to be an old residual from them acquiring 20th Century Fox. That, you know, they had the rights. It was going to be with FX. They ended up, you know, retaining it. But once that deal, like once that's canceled, I'd assume the DC rights probably revert back to Warner.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know how that stuff works, but
like if you cancel the show, I would think you would have to.
I would think you're giving up the. I mean,
right.
I mean, I don't know, because there's some deals in place. Because when Netflix canceled Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Punisher and all those shows, they still held on to them for like 2 years. So I guess it depends on what the contract is like. But she is saying she is actively looking for a home. So I think in this case, that must be in the contract that she can take it somewhere else if they cancel it. And I think it bodes well when a show is canceled on a network and is picked up by somewhere else when it already has a season, because then it dropped on a streaming service. People are like, oh, what's this? There's a whole season that I can watch. Like, oh, this is great. Oh, they're making a season 2. Great. You know, like that's how you can easily get new fans that way.
Yep.
And honestly, like you and I were talking before about this, where you were saying that you just hadn't seen like the hype for it. I think we haven't seen the hype for it because it's not on a streaming service. It's on a cable network. You and I don't have cable, or we don't watch cable. We watch things on streaming services like a lot of people do now, I feel like. So unless you're watching stuff on cable, you probably weren't seeing ads for Y: The Last Man. But if you have HBO Max or Netflix or Disney Plus, whatever, like every time you open that app, there's a giant preview for like, hey, this thing is coming. Check this out. Or, you know, you see it in your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed or whatever. Like you see ads, targeted ads for like the thing that's on the streaming service that you own. You get emails from the streaming service, you know, saying this is what's coming this month. So like, I think we would have seen more hype for it. And I really, really hope that she finds a home for it, because it just took so long for them to make any adaptation of this show. Just, you know, we're almost at 20 years it's taken them to make an adaptation of this show, and they finally did. It's great, and now it's getting canceled. That would suck if we didn't get to see the end of this, because reading the story, knowing how it ends, knowing the development of these characters, I want to see that so bad with these actors in this setting, because all the actors are so good. They're doing such a good job. 355, out of this world. Yorick, so good. Diane Lane is in this show. You got Diane Lane in this show. Like, somebody, HBO Max, please pick this up. Add it to your DC hub. It fits right in. It's great. But it fits right in, and it's also diversifying your portfolio of stuff that you have. Pick it up. Do it. Renew
Yep.
it. Do it. Do it. Do it, HBO Max. Do it. Okay. Anyway. Okay, we got more to talk about, ladies and gentlemen.
Now that we've ranted about that, we've got another big rant coming up here.
A big rant. That's right. Well, I'll try to keep it short.
Dude, fire at will.
Shortish. Well, I have a reason to keep it short, I guess. We
Okay.
have a Kickstarter call out this week, as we always do. I guess we don't always, but as you may have guessed, our Kickstarter call out this week is for me. That's right. I wrote a comic book. We talked about it on yesterday's episode. We talked about it on the week before, where I announced that I had written a comic book and that a Kickstarter was coming. The Kickstarter has launched, ladies and gentlemen. As we record this, we are recording this the end of the 4th day of our Kickstarter for a book that I wrote called The Amazing Shakes, #1 Vampire Girlfriend. And we launched it on Friday, October 15th. And so far, we're doing very well. After this is the end of the 4th day, we are at 66% funded already, which is way more than I ever thought we would get in the first 4 days of this. I gotta say thank you so much to everyone that has pledged any amount. This really means the world to me, and I'm very excited that it's happening. I'm very relieved that I'm finally done building the Kickstarter, because that is overwhelming and it takes a lot of time. So in a nutshell, what is this book about? I am I'm a musician in a few bands here in Syracuse, New York. One of those bands is called The Amazing Shakes, and we put on magical masks and are possessed by spirits of rock and roll vigilantism. This happens in real life. This is a real life thing that I experience every time I put on this magical mask that I have. I am possessed with the spirit of rock and roll vigilantism, and I go play awesome rock and roll shows that negate the bad vibes and evil monsters anywhere around the area. So
He's not lying. I've
obviously,
seen it. It's crazy.
yeah, he's witnessed it. So obviously, I thought this was a great opportunity to base a comic book on. I'd never written a comic book before. This is my first comic book project, my first comic book script. And it's about an adventure of this band, this group, and their pseudo manager and technological genius partner. And it's called Vampire Girlfriend because there's vampires in it. And I don't know what else to say about it, really, but I'm very excited about it. My artist is named Riley Mcfarlane. She lives outside of Toronto, Canada, and she's crushing it. That's really, there's no lettering in the Kickstarter, so you can't really read any of my words. There's a description of the story, but basically, Riley's art is what is selling this book right now, and deservedly so, because she's phenomenal and the art's incredible. So if you want to check out the Kickstarter, you can just look up The Amazing Shakes on Kickstarter.com. If you follow me on any of my social media, I've been posting about it constantly since Friday, so you could easily find a link that way, I'm sure. And if all goes according to plan, we'll be able to maybe dive a little more in depth on this next week, because next week, here's a Multiverse Report first, ladies and gentlemen. If everything goes according to plan, scheduling, technological things work out, next week, the Multiverse Report will be having our first guest. That's right, our first guest ever, and that guest is going to be Riley Mcfarlane, renowned artist extraordinaire, artist, inker, letterer, cover artist for The Amazing Shakes, #1, Vampire Girlfriend, written by me. So that's going to be really exciting. Steve, you're going to get some interview questions together and
I'll throw something together.
Riley.
I think I can manage. So what we'll do is Riley also, is in the nerdosphere. So we'll have her on. We'll have a Q&A session with her and Mike, and then continue on with the normal show, because the news don't stop. So you'll have a third voice to the equation next week.
Yes.
But I did have to laugh when going through the Kickstarter, and Riley's art and everything was awesome, and then I went to pledge, and there were options for the variant covers. And on a normal book, it's extremely hard to choose a variant cover because there's 8 million of them, and there's a lot of really unique art, and it's like, oh, do I want that one or that one or that one or that one? And for this one, 2 of the variant covers are drawn by friends of mine, And I'm like, so how do I can't choose normal variant covers. How do I choose it when I know the people that drew them?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Who do you want to offend the least?
right.
Yeah, we do have a lot of cool rewards. Variant covers, you get your name in the book. You could have gotten drawn into the book if you acted fast enough. Those were a limited quantity and they all went really fast.
Yeah.
First
day gone.
More room for more. Yeah. Literally first day they
Yep.
were all gone. There was 9 of them and they were all gone. So we'll try to see if we can work in some more of that for issue 2. There's also, because we are a band, there are some rewards that offer you exclusive music, which I think is something we wanted to kind of flex our muscle as a band and offer rewards that not every indie comic book can offer. Because we were a band, we thought that was unique, and we wanted to kind of like, I don't know, highlight that, I guess. Like, here's something that you don't necessarily get with every other Kickstarter award. Will people care about that? Who knows? We'll find out in 26 more days at the end of this. See how many people pledge for the music stuff.
Hey, as of now, you're writing 2 songs, so.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm writing 5.
Oh boy!
Because the people that pledged for the songs have pledged for the highest tier level of song, which is you get your name sung into a song. Oh. So I'm writing minimal, and that includes an exclusive 4-song EP of songs. So I'm writing at least the 4-song EP, and then 1 song that, honestly, it's probably going to be 1 song that I just will sing a different name into each time. So call. Sorry if that offends anybody that backed that. But actually, I know who those backers are, and they won't be offended.
You're showing how the cheese is made, man.
I'm showing how the sausage is made, but it's still like, hey, it's the highest tier. But honestly, for what it costs to my time of writing a song, the band's time of learning a song, and then the time it takes to record the song and the cost of a recording studio, yep. I should be asking for way more money than that. But I'm not, because I love you guys and I want to give you stuff for less than it's worth. Classic music industry. Anyway, that's my spiel. I talked about it for longer than I thought I would. That's our Kickstarter call out is a very self-referential, self-indulgent, my own Kickstarter, and that's not the last you'll hear of it, ladies and gentlemen. Like we said, next week our first guest, Riley Mcfarlane, will be on the Multiverse Report, and hopefully this is a doorway to having more guests on more often. I think that would be fun. Yeah,
I figured out the technical end of it, so we're good to go.
We're good to go. All right. In other news in comics this week, legendary Steve. I'm gonna let you say this because you're so excited about it. You do it.
So the GOAT is back. Legendary writer Chris Claremont, the sculptor of all things X-Men, and yes, there were plenty of others, but
sure,
he is the GOAT. Like those Claremont runs, like there's literal Twitter handles and podcasts about the Claremont run.
Yeah,
like there's that's where it all started and where it all came to fruition.
Where it all kept going.
Yeah, he so Claremont is returning to an X-Men title, so he will be writing a new story for X-Men Legends number 12. It'll take place after the Fall of the Mutants event, so it'll be interesting to see, like, kind of middle to the end of the Claremont run, and he's slotting this story in there. It looks like it's his classic Uncanny lineup, and we'll see what happens or where it goes. But it's got like Nightcrawler and Kitty doing Nightcrawler and Kitty things, and because back then she was Kitty, it was pre-Kate.
Yeah.
So
yep.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens and how it fits into everything.
Yeah, initially, I mean, I'm excited for this. Initially, I was more excited for this because I thought he was returning as like a writer. I thought he was going to do like a miniseries.
Right, taking over for Hickman.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's only one story. And then I was like, oh, it's like it takes place in his late 80s continuity. Like it's not even a modern X-Men story, which is cooler. also, that he doesn't have to like deal with. He doesn't have to deal with Hickman stuff. You know, he's just like, I just want to continue the thing that I was doing.
Right.
Which is super cool. And yeah, I'm sure that anytime Chris Claremont calls up Marvel Comics and is like, hey, can I do a thing? They're like, yes, please, walk right in.
Right.
Here's a bag of money. Please do that. Or they should be doing that anyway. That's how they should be treating it, for sure.
And that's, what was it? They reissued God Loves Man Kills last year. Now they've got him back for this. Like, he's slowly coming back into the fold. Like, maybe we do get a new Claremont run.
I think, didn't he do a New Mutants? I think he did a New Mutants issue
a
couple years ago too. Yeah. So he's never strayed too far.
No. And the art, just from the cover they showed at least, is like a cleaner, it looks like a cleaned up version of that late 80s art, which fits perfectly.
Yep.
Tighten the lines up, still give it that same feel.
Yeah, I'm sure. In other Marvel Comics news, Elektra is getting her own miniseries. Spoiler alert, if you're way behind on your Daredevil comics, about a year ago, Elektra took over for Matt Murdock as the new Daredevil. And now she's getting her own miniseries, which is very aptly titled Daredevil, Woman Without Fear. Obviously a play on the Man Without Fear moniker that Daredevil has had for a long time. Steve, I still have not picked up any of this Daredevil, this legendary Chip Zdarsky run on Daredevil that he's doing. And now, I don't know, I couldn't see in the article that I read what is happening to the normal Daredevil title while Elektra spins off into her own miniseries. I know there's like a Devil's Reign event that's happening, so maybe the normal book is being kind of paused while that event's going on.
Yeah.
But it seems like if she's continuing as Daredevil, why isn't this just going in the regular Daredevil book? Why is it its own miniseries? I don't know, but it's still cool.
Yeah, the Devil's Reign event and this, and it just makes me realize that I really need to read that Zdarsky run.
Yeah.
I think I got like the first trade in, and I was like, one thing led to another, but it was phenomenal, and it's still phenomenal, and there's a reason it was, listed for all of the Eisners. It's like, I got to go back and read that now.
Yeah, same. I do too. And it just, everything that I see about it, including this, just makes me like, why am I not reading that? Why am I not reading that?
What did I hear? Zdarsky might be doing a Batman book.
Oh, we're about to talk about that.
Oh, really? Did I miss that on the rundown?
You must have.
I did.
We got one more Marvel comic announcement, and then we're jumping right into that.
Hey, on the bright side, I'm not going insane, though.
Yeah, it's true. You're not. No. You definitely read it somewhere.
Perfect.
Speaking of She-Hulk, She-Hulk is getting a new ongoing series coming out this January. This is a new series from writer Rainbow Rowell and artist Roge Antonio. They will going to return the character of Jennifer Walters to her roots as a lawyer, while also, quote, pushing her down a road she's never traveled, and also possibly teaming her up with some old friends, is what they were kind of teasing. Not too much information on this, coming out in January. Steve, this has got to be in some way to line up with the Disney Plus show, right?
Yeah, I mean they're relaunching Kate Bishop Hawkeye in November. They're relaunching this in January. Like, it's got to, that to me that means She-Hulk is at least first half of 22.
It's got to be. I mean, they're really relaunching Kate Bishop Hawkeye in November. The show, Disney Plus Hawkeye show, comes out in November.
Right.
So it's possible that this is very early 22.
Yeah.
But we just talked about how we haven't seen anything. We've seen more stuff. We've heard more about Moonlight. We've seen or heard more about Ms. Marvel. We haven't seen anything about She-Hulk. Yeah. Well, we talked about, we've seen a couple pictures, but nothing of Titania Maslany. I don't know. I would love it if it was just a shock. Like, oh yeah, by the way, we're done with this and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Here it is. It's coming out in January. That'd be great. But, I think it's great when different corners of the company can line up like this. Like, the comic comes out at the same time the show's coming out and the movie's coming out. It's not often that they can get their shit together enough to line things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
To cross promote like this. But it is super cool when they're there for each other in that way. And moving on, the last comics announcement we got. Steve, have you heard that Chip Zdarsky is writing a Batman series?
Yep. Apparently, to me, like when I read it before, we talked about how you're very big on the city level type stuff, and
Yeah.
Zdarsky nailing Daredevil to me screams he's going to find a way to nail Batman.
Yeah, for sure. And he's definitely written the character before. I mean, he's written runs on like Justice League and stuff before, so he's no stranger to DC in general. We got two cool DC announcements this week. One, that Chip Zdarsky is doing a new Batman, I guess, mini-ish, maxi-ish series,
Right.
with artist Carmine Di Giandomenico. Did I get that? Giandomenico?
Giandomenico?
Yeah. It's called Batman the Knight. Knight, obviously spelled with a K. Classic Batman pun. It's going to be 10 issues, and it's going to focus on the kind of the more ill-defined time in Bruce Wayne's life when he's away training to become Batman. When he leaves sometime after his parents get killed, but before he comes back to start dressing like a bat and punching criminals in the face. I feel like there's never been a ton of time they've never spent a ton of time focusing on that period of his life. Like, yeah, he went away training, like it's told in a montage, or maybe they spend an issue on it, or there's a flashback to it or something.
They spend more time on it in Batman Begins than they have in the books.
Yeah. And so this is interesting. And again, it's only 10 issues, and we don't know if, I guess the whole series going to be focused on that, because as cool as that is, at the same time, you're trying to sell me a Batman book without Batman in it.
Right.
And I don't know how long that. I mean, Chip Zdarsky's a great writer, obviously. So, like, if someone can do it, he's someone that can do it. But how many people are going to keep coming back unless Batman isn't putting on a cape and cowl and.
Well, it could be. We're talking about how the Batman is supposed to be early in the career.
Yeah.
For the movie and that, and this is setting up like the training, and then when he first tries to do it, like think about in Spider-Man Homecoming when Spidey goes out and screws up everything the first couple of times out, and maybe you're seeing him stumble as the Bat for a while.
Yeah, maybe. The preview from issue 1 showed him in some kind of like underground street fighting boxing ring or something like that, hands all taped up and stuff, so like he's clearly getting down and dirty, learning what he needs to learn, which is cool. And not that's not interesting, but usually if the word Batman is in the title of a book, you expect to see Batman, and if it's not completely compelling, then you might lose some people, I guess.
Right.
And then we also got, by the way, what you said, you can compare it to the Batman, made me realize, or made me remember that I picked up my pull list from my comic book store over the weekend, and I read this issue 1 of we've talked about it on the show when they announced it. It's a Batman miniseries called Batman the Imposter.
Yeah.
It's very good, super cool art. I don't remember the name of the creative team, but it's almost like they're drawing it and writing it to be maybe a prequel to the Robert Pattinson movie. Like they're drawing Bruce Wayne to look like Robert Pattinson. And I don't know if that's on purpose or if it just happens to be the way that this person draws Bruce Wayne, a young Bruce Wayne. But I was like, kind of looks a lot like Robert Pattinson. The way, like, as a human being, not just the suit, just kind of looks like a Batman suit necessarily, but like him with his mask off, kind of looks like Robert Pattinson a lot.
So Batman is a sparkly vampire, confirmed.
Exactly.
Perfect.
The other cool announcement we got a new creative team for Catwoman, taking over for Ram V and his artist, whose name is escaping me, Ram V's been doing an incredible run on Catwoman. First time I've ever really spent a ton of time reading Catwoman. Like I've gotten an issue here or there, but for the last probably 6 or 8 months, I've been reading Catwoman hardcore because it's been so good. But the new Ram V is leaving Catwoman. He announced a month ago or so. He's not leaving DC. He's just dropping. He's got he's too busy to do everything, so he's got to drop one book, and it's going to be Catwoman. The new writer is going to be Teenie Howard, and the artist is Nico Leone. They're teasing a Catwoman story, the likes of which has never been seen before. Their words, not mine. So that will be very interesting. The cover art they've released a couple covers, like the series cover and also variant covers, that all look incredible. This woman named Jenny Frison, or Jenny Frison, I don't know how you pronounce her name. She's been doing variant covers for Catwoman for a while now, and they're all gorgeous, nice. Absolutely gorgeous. So check her out. Check her out. Her Catwoman covers are really anything that she's doing. It's great.
I do like the use of, I don't like that they're grabbing Teenie Howard, because her work on, what was it, Excalibur and X of Swords. And all
that's
that
right. I knew I had seen that name before. Yeah.
So all of that was awesome, and I think she's probably wrapping up X Corp now. So that's a big coup from the X team heading over to DC. So we'll see if she has to drop some of the X books or what's going on, or it's not often they let everybody play in both sandboxes at the same time, but we've got Zadarski and now Howard.
I know, so. Not everybody signs an exclusive, so they get to jump around. They get to walk between both worlds. Mm-hmm. And this week, coming up in comics this week, is a pretty big week for comics. We got Amazing Spider-Man 78, Batman 115, Batman Catwoman number 8, Black Panther number 1. New run on Black Panther starts this week. Catwoman Lonely City, a new miniseries from DC's Black Label, starts, as well as another regular Catwoman issue. We got Critical Role, Tales of Exandria number 1. We talked about the Critical Role Hulu series in an episode or two ago. I believe this is a tie-in comic book to that.
Yep.
We got Nightwing number 85, Moon Knight number 5, Nubia and the Amazons number 1, Star Wars High Republic Trail of Shadows number 2, Superman Son of Kal-El number 4, getting closer to that big reveal of Jonathan Kent coming out as bisexual, number 5, and also the ongoing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 122 is coming out this week. This is a big week. There's a bunch of books that I didn't put on this list because it's already so long. But
there's a couple on there that I definitely forgot were coming out and should probably pull, like the new Black Panther run, and that Catwoman Black Label looks pretty solid. I hate that you're getting me more into the DC end of things.
Don't hate it. Come on, just jump over.
I'm embracing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And High Republic, it's funny, I have the trade up on my little landing next to my door. The next time I'm driving around your neighborhood, I'll just throw it on your porch. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I got to get you a Court of Owls, as we talked about in the previous episode. Also, that Nightwing is a new. It's a good jumping on point for that Nightwing because it's the last issue ended an arc. There's a new arc starting in '85, and honestly, it's the best Nightwing I've ever read in a long time. It's just an incredible all-around book. So I can't sing the praises of Tom Taylor's Nightwing enough.
So it's Taylor still staying on with it, and they're just starting a new arc up. Okay.
He has said several times that he and the artist Bruno Ronaldo have plans to be on Nightwing for a long time. Apparently.
Okay.
So I think, barring any unforeseen circumstances, Taylor's going to be writing Nightwing for quite some time, which I am fine with because it's great. I've never stayed on a Nightwing book this long. He's doing great stuff. So, all right, closing out the show as we do with some one-shots. There's only 3 this week, and 2 of them are barely related to news, nerdy news topics that we normally talk about, but they're things that we think are fun and cool, so we're going to talk about them anyway. First one, we got Jacob Scipio. I don't know how to say that name.
Scipio, I think.
Jacob Scipio is cast in a supporting role in Batgirl. No information on his character. Steve, take it away.
In things that are extremely tangentially related to nerd news, but also something I've been more excited about hearing than I have about many things in a long time, Mel Brooks has gotten greenlit to produce History of the World Part 2. It's good to be the king.
That's right. And finally, this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a while because it's something that I think is very interesting. We didn't talk about it when it was announced just because it was too tangential away from the nerd stuff, but I just threw it in this week. Rob Zombie is directing an updated version of the Munsters. I believe it's a movie, Munsters movie. And he gave us an update on the cast of his Munsters reboot. Stars as you can imagine, his wife playing Lily Munster, as she is cast in everything else. And I don't have the names up of who's playing Herman and who's playing Grandpa, but they're also actors he's worked with before.
It looked
so
really like they showed a still from like of the three of them.
Yeah,
and they look dead nuts on.
Yeah, and the house is like I follow him on Instagram, and he's been posting progress shots of them building the house, and it looks incredible. It looks exactly like the old TV show version of the house. I think it's like a Peacock original. Like he's shooting it for NBC. I think it's a Peacock original movie or something, which is really interesting because I'm a fan of Rob Zombie's music. I think it's fun, and it's just like balls to the wall heavy metal, but it's also just about like monsters and vampires and stuff. So I think it's really fun. His music, his movies, some can be hit or miss for me. Like I think he's a good enough director. His writing sometimes can be a little lacking, I think, for me. But I'm very interested to see what he does with, by what all accounts should be a family-friendly film, because I've never seen him make a movie that is remotely family-friendly, and now he's making the Munsters. There's no way that NBC asks him to make a Munsters and says, hey, we want this to be something with legs, we want this to be something that continues on, and we want this to be something that reaches a wide audience. From the guy that has made House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, amongst many other incredibly brutal and violent and
opposite of the Munsters stuff.
Opposite of family friendly. I'm very excited to see what this is like, and I don't know if he wrote it or not. I need to look up whether or not he wrote it or if he's working with someone else's script, because a lot of times I feel like he has trouble with his characters not saying the F word constantly in a lot of his movies. So be interested to see that if he did write it, how it is. But even him directing it, I'm going to be interested to see how this comes out. I'm also very interested in who Jacob Sapio is playing in Batgirl. No information on who it is. Is it a character that we know? Who knows? But again, like we talked about with DC Fandom, they didn't give us a ton of information about Batgirl. They did give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah.
But it's just great to get some kind of confirmation that, yes, this is still happening. DC has pulled the rug out from under us a number of times in the past. Years ago, where they used to announce movies that, didn't really have a prayer of getting made. Now they're announcing things and actually making them, which is great to hear. So anything like this makes me excited for Batgirl.
Yep.
And Steve, as you said, holy crap, History of the World Part 2.
How? I don't know. But maybe we actually finally get Hitler on Ice and Jews in Space?
Oh, I forgot about that, how that ends. Oh my gosh. I haven't seen History of the World Part 1 in a long time, and I haven't seen it in a long time because I watched it so much for a while when I was like in early high school or whatever, just constantly watching it to the point where I got burned out on it. And it's such a funny movie, and it's such a good way to sequelize it. I kind of am bummed that it ruins the joke of there not being a part 2. Like, It's just funny that he called it Part 1 without an intention of making a Part 2. But having it be a series instead of a movie is great because all those little vignettes. Because if you haven't seen History of the World Part 1, History of the World Part 1 is a Mel Brooks comedy movie that it's like little sketches about different points in history, cavemen and ancient Rome and up through, more modern kind of times. Actually, I don't think they get like super modern with it, but they're all just like little vignettes or little sketches basically strung together. There's no plot, overarching narrative or whatever. There's no reoccurring characters that I remember anyway. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I think the best way, if you make a movie like that now, I feel like that wouldn't fly. People would be like, what is this? I don't know what this is. But doing it as a series, each one of those little vignettes can be an episode,
Right.
or half an episode or something, and it would work. And there was a lot of really funny people's names attached to this.
Very much.
Announcement.
Nick Kroll, Wanda Sykes, Ike Barinholtz, David Stassen, and Kevin Salter. On top of course, the master himself, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, yeah.
He's old.
He's very old, but from what I've seen, I've heard interviews or seen stuff on him recently. He's got it. He's still pretty sharp.
I still, it was I think the year pre-COVID, he was actually, I was this close to driving out to Schenectady, and he did a screening of, it was either Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein.
Oh my God.
And he was like, he was gonna MST3K it and just
What?
talk through the whole thing, and something came up and I couldn't drive out there, and I was like, I just missed like the once in a lifetime shot to see this.
Oh man, that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
I remember I was a big fan of directors' commentaries when that was a thing, when they used to do those, and they don't anymore, which is a bummer. And there's a director's, I remember I had at one point had the DVD for Young Frankenstein, and the director's commentary at one point, he just stops doing it. It's not, the movie's not over. The movie's got like 40 minutes left, and he's like, well, okay, I think I'm done with this. Bye. And just stops in the middle of the movie.
God. It's amazing.
Which is really funny. Yeah, but I mean, who knows? Maybe he did that after 20 minutes of the night in Schenectady, so maybe you didn't miss as much as you think you did. But anyway, I think that's really funny. And again, sorry, these are not super, they're not part of the MCU. They're not the DC Extended Universe. They're not Star Wars, whatever. But
they're still worth you checking out, though.
They're still worth checking out, and they're still funny. And I mean, especially the monsters is like genre enough to talk about. Plus, it's spooky season. We talk about the monsters, spooky season.
There you go.
Sometimes I wish this included horror movies, because sometimes I really want to talk about horror movies with you, Steve. But no, we gotta stick to our nerdy guns here. So anyway, this has been a pretty long episode. 2 pretty long episodes in a row.
Not bad for having done one last night too. So
yeah, I know. So, but I think we're all good. See, Steve. So why don't you wrap this one up too?
Sure. As always, if you could like and subscribe. If you're watching us on Twitch, follow below. If you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we're posting stuff. Your podcatcher of choice. Words help. Any words you can leave us, any stars you can leave us are good things for us. Talking to you, Adam. And then beyond that, if you want to get a hold of us, at Multiverse RPT on Twitter, the Multiverse Report at gmail.com, or the Multiverse Report on Facebook or Instagram. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to ask us questions. Feel free to just say hi. Back Mike's Kickstarter, The Amazing Shakes on Kickstarter. Beyond that, I think that's a wrap. And we will see you next week. And until then, we'll see you around the multiverse.